The video opens with the profound and comforting words of Psalm 27, verse 1 to 5, setting the foundation for a powerful message about divine protection and strength. The psalm begins with a declaration of unwavering faith. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? These words resonate deeply, offering not just a poetic reflection, but a profound truth that speaks to the core of our human experience. When we are surrounded by uncertainty, fear, or the weight of life's challenges, these affirmations stand as a beacon of hope, reminding us that God is always with us. In times of darkness or difficulty, it is easy to feel lost, overwhelmed, or powerless. Yet, these verses encourage us to shift our focus from the external circumstances to the internal truth of God's presence. When the psalmist speaks of the Lord as my light, it is an invitation to understand that, no matter how dark the path may seem, God's light will guide our way. His light does not flicker or fade, it shines eternally, offering clarity in moments of confusion and comfort in moments of sorrow. Similarly, when the psalmist refers to the Lord as my salvation, it is an expression of trust in God's ability to rescue and deliver us from the trials we face. No circumstance, no enemy, no hardship is beyond his power to overcome. The affirmation that the Lord is the strength of my life invites us to rely not on our own frail abilities, but on his infinite, unshakable strength. It is a reminder that we need not carry the burdens of life alone. In him we find the strength to endure, to persevere, and to rise above. With these words, the psalmist teaches us to cultivate a mindset of peace and fearlessness. For with God as our light and strength, there is no need to fear any circumstance. The difficulties we face may still be present, but they no longer have the power to control us. God's strength becomes our anchor, his light our guide, and in his presence we are emboldened to face each day with courage and unwavering faith. In a world often filled with fear and anxiety, these verses remind us that fear has no place when we are anchored in the love, protection, and strength of God. As we reflect on these truths, we are invited to let go of our fears and trust fully in his eternal presence and protection. No matter what may come, we stand firm in the assurance that God, our light and salvation, is with us always. David's unshakable trust in God's protection. Psalm 27, written by King David, offers a profound glimpse into the heart of a man who despite facing countless trials and enemies, remains unwavering in his trust in God's protection. David's life was marked by both great victories and immense struggles, fleeing from Saul, fighting wars, and encountering betrayal. Yet throughout these turbulent experiences, his faith never wavered, and his confidence in God's safeguarding presence remained steadfast. His trust in God's ability to protect him from harm is clear in every line of this psalm, and it serves as a powerful example of unwavering faith. In verses 2 and 3, David reflects on the times when his enemies, both seen and unseen, would rise up against him. Yet, even as armies surrounded him and threats loomed large, David declares, "Though an host should encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war should rise against me, in this will I be confident." His words reveal a deep, resolute trust in the Lord's ability to shield him. He does not focus on the strength of his enemies or the magnitude of the battle before him. Instead, his focus remains firmly on the strength of the God who is with him. This unwavering confidence is rooted not in his own power, but in the steadfast assurance that God, the creator of the heavens and earth, is his refuge and protector. David's trust was not blind optimism or wishful thinking. It was a deep, lived experience of God's faithfulness throughout his life. He had witnessed God's protection in the past and knew that the same God who delivered him from the lion and the bear, who gave him victory over Goliath, would continue to protect him in every battle he faced. This history of divine faithfulness built a solid foundation for David's unshakable trust in God's protection. No matter the size of the opposition or the weight of the threats, David knew that God's power was greater and that he would be his shield. In reflecting on David's trust, we are reminded that our own faith is often strengthened through our experiences with God's protection in the past. Each time we see God's hand at work in our lives, it builds our confidence to face future challenges, knowing that he who has been faithful before will continue to be faithful now and forever. David's trust in God's protection is a call to us to remember the many ways in which God has shielded us, provided for us, and guided us through life's difficulties. Just as David stood unshaken in the face of his enemies, we too are called to stand firm, knowing that God's protection will never fail. No matter the size of the obstacles we face, we can trust that God is with us, surrounding us with his strength and care. As we face our own battles, we can declare like David that our hearts will not fear, and we will remain confident in God's unfailing protection. The power of God revealed in trials. C.S. Lewis, in his writings, beautifully captures a profound truth. God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world. This powerful insight reminds us that God's presence and power are often most clearly revealed during our trials and challenges. While we may prefer to avoid hardship, it is in these difficult moments that we are most attuned to God's unwavering support and transformative strength. David's experience, as expressed in Psalm 27, illustrates this principle. Throughout his life, David faced overwhelming challenges, danger from enemies, betrayal, and moments of deep personal despair. Yet it was in the midst of these trials that he experienced the depth of God's power and faithfulness. In verse 5, David writes, "For in the time of trouble he shall hide me in his pavilion. In the secret of his tabernacle shall he hide me. He shall set me up upon a rock." This is not a promise that difficulties will be removed, but that in the midst of them, God will provide refuge, shelter, and the strength to endure. God's power is not merely a distant abstract concept. It is tangible, active, and most clearly experienced when we are in the midst of life's storms. Lewis's perspective also aligns with the message of Psalm 27. Trials and pain are not meaningless. They serve to draw us closer to God and to deepen our trust in his ability to carry us through. In times of difficulty, we are forced to confront our own limitations and weaknesses, which is precisely when God's strength becomes most apparent. It is when we are weakest that God's power shines brightest, for he is able to use our vulnerability as a vessel for his glory. These trials become opportunities for God to reveal his sustaining power. Just as David found refuge in God during times of war and danger, we too are invited to experience God's presence in our struggles. In these moments, our faith is strengthened as we come to realize that we do not face life's challenges alone. We can trust that God will hide us in his pavilion, shield us from harm, and lift us above the chaos that surrounds us. Ultimately, these experiences serve to deepen our reliance on God. Our pain and difficulties act as a megaphone, drawing our attention back to the one who is our source of strength and refuge. Instead of fleeing from trials, we can choose to embrace them as opportunities to grow in trust and dependence on God's unfailing support. With this understanding, we can face every trial with confidence, knowing that God's power is most vividly revealed in our times of need, and that through our struggles he is shaping us, strengthening us, and drawing us closer to himself. Relying on God's strength, not our own. David's unwavering confidence in the Lord reveals a profound truth. It is not our own strength that sustains us, but the divine strength of God. Throughout Psalm 27, David continually emphasizes his reliance on God rather than his own abilities. His life, filled with victories and adversities alike, serves as a testament to the power of trusting God's strength in moments of weakness. When faced with overwhelming circumstances, David does not turn to his own resources, knowledge, or strategies. Instead, he places his trust fully in the Lord, knowing that it is only through God's power that he can overcome the challenges before him. In verse 3, David expresses his unshakable faith in God's protection, stating, "Though an host should encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war should rise against me, in this will I be confident." His confidence is not rooted in his own military might or strategic prowess. It is grounded in the knowledge that God's strength is infinitely greater than any enemy or difficulty he might face. This is the foundation of David's courage, a deep reliance on the strength of God, which empowers him to face danger with calm assurance and unwavering resolve. When we rely on our own strength, we are bound by our human limitations. We can become exhausted, overwhelmed, and discouraged, especially when facing situations that are beyond our control. But when we lean into God's strength, we are tapping into an infinite source of power, one that is not confined by our own shortcomings. God's strength is unshakable, constant, and ever present, and it provides us with the endurance to keep moving forward, even when the road ahead seems insurmountable. This reliance on God's strength transforms our approach to life. Instead of being weighed down by the fear of failure or the pressure to solve every problem on our own, we begin to move through life with a sense of peace and confidence. We know that no matter what challenges come our way, we are not alone. God's strength becomes the foundation of our courage, allowing us to face overwhelming circumstances with grace and determination. David's example calls us to shift our perspective. We are encouraged to relinquish the burden of self-reliance and place our trust in God's divine provision. This faith allows us to move forward with courage, knowing that we do not need to depend on our own abilities to succeed. Instead, we can trust that God's strength will carry us through, empowering us to rise above our fears and challenges. In moments of uncertainty or trial, we can find peace in knowing that the same God who sustained David will also sustain us, providing the strength we need to overcome whatever lies ahead. The desire for communion with God. In verse 4 of Psalm 27, David reveals his deepest longing. One thing have I desired of the Lord, that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord, and to inquire in his temple. This verse captures the essence of David's heart, his profound desire to remain in the presence of God, to seek his beauty and truth above all else. For David, the ultimate fulfillment was not found in earthly achievements or comforts, but in intimate communion with the Lord. His yearning to dwell in God's presence speaks to a deeper desire within all of us, a longing for connection, peace, and fulfillment that can only be found in God's embrace. David's desire to behold the beauty of the Lord is not just about appreciating the grandeur of God's creation or his works. It reflects a longing to be united with God's very essence. The beauty David speaks of is not merely external. It is an invitation to experience God's holiness, love, and grace in a way that transforms the heart. This longing for communion with God echoes the sentiments of C.S. Lewis, who famously wrote, "We do not want merely to see beauty. We want to be united with the beauty we see, to pass into it, to become part of it." David's prayer mirrors this profound desire, not just to admire God from a distance, but to experience a union with him that brings ultimate satisfaction and purpose. This longing for communion with God is something that resonates deeply with believers today. In a world filled with distractions and noise, the desire to dwell in God's presence often gets overshadowed by the demands and pressures of life. Yet, the more we seek God's presence, the more we discover that this is the true source of fulfillment. It is in communion with him that we find peace, clarity, and purpose, and it is in his presence that our hearts are made whole. David's pursuit of God is a reminder that all other desires pale in comparison to the joy of being with the one who created us. In moments of prayer and reflection, we too can echo David's desire to dwell in God's house, to experience his beauty, and to inquire in his temple. This desire is not just about a physical place, but about cultivating a heart that yearns for God's presence wherever we are. It is a reminder that the truest satisfaction comes not from fleeting pleasures, but from a life deeply rooted in God's love and grace. As we seek to follow in David's footsteps, may we too find our hearts drawn to God's presence, longing for that intimate communion that brings us closer to the beauty of his divine nature. In that connection, we are reminded that fulfillment is not found in what we achieve or accumulate, but in the simple, life-giving act of being with the Creator. God is our refuge and shelter. In Psalm 27, verse 5, paints a powerful image of God as our refuge. For in the time of trouble, he shall hide me in his pavilion. In the secret of his tabernacle shall he hide me. He shall set me up upon a rock. These words reflect a profound truth. When life becomes chaotic and overwhelming, God offers us a place of safety and protection. His shelter provides not only physical refuge, but also spiritual security, lifting us above the turmoil of our circumstances and granting us the peace that surpasses understanding. David's declaration is a reminder that, No matter how fierce the storm or how relentless the struggles we face, God is always there to offer his protection. His shelter is a place where we can find rest for our weary hearts and clarity for our confused minds. It is in God's presence that we are given the perspective we need to rise above the chaos of life. Just as a storm cannot touch the shelter of a sturdy building, the trials and tribulations of life lose their power when we take refuge in the Lord. His protection elevates us above the noise and confusion, allowing us to experience a peace that transcends our understanding. This image of God as a refuge also speaks to the comfort that comes from being in his presence. In times of trouble, when we feel vulnerable and exposed, God provides a secure place where we can be hidden from harm. His shelter is not just a physical haven, but a spiritual fortress where our hearts can find healing and restoration. It is a place where we are safe from the fears and anxieties that so often overwhelm us. When we are hidden in God's pavilion, we are shielded not only from external dangers, but also from the internal fears that threaten to consume us. His presence calms the storms within us, giving us the strength to stand firm even when everything around us seems to be falling apart. David's assurance that God will set me up upon a rock further emphasizes the stability that God offers. The imagery of a rock conveys unshakable security and steadfastness. Just as a rock remains immovable, no matter how fierce the winds may blow, so too does God's protection keep us grounded in times of trouble. His refuge is a place of stability, a firm foundation that allows us to remain unshaken even in the face of life's most daunting challenges. In these moments of shelter, we are also reminded of the hope that God provides. His protection is not just about survival, it is about flourishing in the midst of adversity. The shelter God offers elevates us, not just shielding us from harm, but also empowering us to move forward with renewed strength and courage. As we rest in his protection, we are reminded that we are never alone. God's unwavering presence brings clarity to our minds and hope to our hearts, assuring us that no matter how difficult life may be, we are always safe in his care. In times of trouble, when everything seems uncertain, we can find comfort and peace in the knowledge that God is our refuge and shelter. His protection transcends the storms of life, providing us with clarity, hope, and the strength to endure. As we take refuge in him, we are reminded that even in the darkest of times, God is our safe haven, a place where we can rest, heal, and find the courage to face whatever lies ahead, finding peace and stability in God's truth. Psalm 27 beckons us to find peace in the light and protection of God. David's words invite us to step away from the chaos of the world and seek refuge in the unwavering truth of God's love. When we allow ourselves to be anchored in his presence, we discover a peace that transcends all understanding. It is not a peace that comes from the absence of challenges, but from the assurance that God's love is constant and his protection is unshakable, no matter what circumstances we face. By grounding ourselves in God's truth, we establish a firm foundation that is not easily shaken by the storms of life. God's light illuminates our path, helping us to see beyond the immediate difficulties and to understand our place within his greater plan. When we center our hearts on his promises, we begin to recognize that his truth is more reliable than any fleeting emotion or uncertain circumstance. As Psalm 27 assures us, when we place our trust in God, our hearts will not fear, for we are rooted in the security of his love. This stability allows us to face life's challenges with a courage that comes not from our own strength, but from God's unwavering presence in our lives. The more we internalize his promises, the more we are equipped to act boldly, knowing that we are never alone in our struggles. Whether it's stepping into a new opportunity, facing an overwhelming situation, or confronting our fears, God's truth empowers us to move forward with confidence. We no longer rely solely on our abilities, but trust in the strength and wisdom that God provides. This trust is what enables us to take bold steps, knowing that no matter the outcome, we are firmly rooted in his care and protection. God's peace and stability also transform how we approach our relationships, our work, and our daily responsibilities. Instead of being swayed by the ups and downs of life, we are anchored in a deep and unshakable peace that influences everything we do. The more we focus on God's light and truth, the more we become a reflection of his peace in the world around us. We are no longer driven by anxiety or fear, but by the calm assurance that God is with us in every moment. Psalm 27 reminds us that peace is not just a feeling, but a foundation that allows us to live out our faith with boldness. By focusing on God's love and protection, we find the courage to face life's uncertainties with hope, knowing that our stability is rooted in him. The more we lean into his truth, the more we experience the deep, lasting peace that comes from knowing we are held securely in his embrace. With this peace, we are equipped not only to endure, but to thrive, knowing that God's light shines through even in the darkest of times. A prayer for guidance, peace, and trust. As the video draws to a close, it leads viewers in a prayer of heartfelt thanksgiving, acknowledging God's constant presence and seeking his guidance, peace, and strength. This prayer is a beautiful reflection of the trust that we place in God's wisdom, providence, and grace as we surrender our burdens and anxieties into his loving care. The prayer begins by offering praise to God for his light, which dispels the darkness of fear and uncertainty. It acknowledges that, even in our struggles, he is the one who steadies us, lifting us from despair and placing us securely upon the firm foundation of his love. There is a deep sense of gratitude for the comfort and refuge he provides, as we are reminded that God is not only our protector, but our constant guide, leading us through life's challenges with wisdom and grace. In this moment of prayer, we express our dependence on God's strength rather than our own. We ask for the courage to trust his plans for our lives, even when we cannot see the full picture. With humble hearts, we surrender our personal burdens, uncertainties, and fears to God, knowing that he holds each moment of our lives in his care. We seek the peace that comes from fully trusting in his providence and guidance, asking for the strength to follow where he leads, step by step, with faith and assurance that he will never abandon us. The prayer also reflects a heart that longs for deeper communion with God. Just as David expressed his desire to dwell in the house of the Lord, so too do we yearn for closeness with our Creator. In this prayer, we seek not only God's guidance, but also his presence, asking for the grace to rest in his embrace and to experience the fullness of his love. We recognize that, in his presence, we find the peace and strength we need to face every challenge with confidence and grace. Finally, the prayer concludes with a surrendering of all our plans, hopes, and dreams to God's perfect will. We acknowledge that, while we may not always understand the path ahead, we trust that God's wisdom far exceeds our own. We place our faith in his ability to guide us, knowing that his plans for us are always good, and his love will sustain us through every trial. This prayer serves as a powerful reminder that, through God's wisdom, grace, and providence, we can find peace in the midst of life's uncertainties. By surrendering our burdens to him and trusting in his guidance, we can live with the assurance that we are never alone and that God's unwavering presence will always lead us toward his perfect peace. Asking for God's blessings and abundant grace. In the next part of the prayer, we ask for God's blessings to flow abundantly into our lives, praying for his favor to rest upon us in every moment. We humbly seek his blessings not only for ourselves, but for those around us, hoping that his grace will refresh and renew us for the journey ahead. The prayer reflects a deep sense of gratitude for the constant care and provision God offers, recognizing that his blessings are a source of strength and vitality for the challenges we face. We ask God to touch every aspect of our lives with his favor, from our relationships and work to our personal growth and health. His blessings are not just material, but spiritual, bringing peace to our hearts, clarity to our minds, and joy to our spirits. With each blessing, we are reminded of God's tender care and unwavering love. His grace renews us, providing the strength we need to continue moving forward, even when the path feels uncertain. This part of the prayer also reflects an understanding of the transformative power of God's love. It is through his abundant grace that we are able to grow, change, and become more aligned with his will. We recognize that God's favor is not something we deserve, but rather a gift that flows from his boundless love and mercy. In asking for his blessings, we acknowledge the truth that his grace is what sustains us, transforms us, and equips us to face life with renewed purpose and hope. We pray that God's favor will not only bring us comfort, but also empower us to be a blessing to others. As His love fills our hearts, we are called to reflect that love to those around us, sharing His grace with our families, friends, and communities. The prayer, therefore, becomes a call for both personal renewal and for the ability to extend that renewal to the world. Ultimately, this part of the prayer serves as a reminder that God's blessings are abundant and endless. No matter what we face, His grace is sufficient, and His favor is a constant source of hope and renewal. As we place our trust in Him, we can be assured that He will equip us with everything we need for the journey ahead, filling our hearts with peace, joy, and the courage to face whatever lies before us. A final prayer and invitation for participation. As the video comes to a close, it invites viewers to share their personal prayer requests, creating an open space for connection and community. This moment of invitation encourages viewers to come together in prayer, offering their burdens, joys, and hopes to God. The act of sharing prayer requests is not only an opportunity to ask for God's intervention, but also a chance to uplift one another in faith, knowing that we are never alone in our struggles. It serves as a reminder that we are all part of a larger community, bound together by our shared trust in God's love and His ability to answer our prayers. The video emphasizes the power of collective prayer, as the shared requests and blessings unite the hearts of many in pursuit of divine guidance and peace. By engaging with the prayer community, viewers are reminded of the strength found in mutual support and the power of intercession. This call to participate is an invitation to not only receive prayer, but to offer it as well, fostering a spirit of unity and shared faith that transcends individual circumstances. The final prayer is a beautiful closing, invoking the grace and peace of Jesus Christ to be upon each person watching. It expresses a deep hope for the viewers' hearts to be filled with God's love, strength, and protection. The prayer recognizes Jesus as the ultimate source of grace, calling upon His name to bless each individual with peace that surpasses all understanding. This peace, which comes only through a relationship with Christ, is the foundation upon which we are able to stand firm in life's trials, knowing that His grace will never fail us. As the prayer concludes, a final blessing is offered for all, praying that God's light will continue to guide every viewer, that His strength will be their shield, and that His love will transform their lives. The prayer closes with a sense of hope and gratitude, sending forth the message that, no matter the challenges we face, God's grace is always sufficient, and His peace is always available to those who seek it. In this moment, viewers are encouraged to carry the peace of Christ with them as they go forward, knowing that they are held securely in God's care. This final prayer and invitation serve as a reminder that we are all part of a greater story, one where God's love, grace, and peace are ever present, guiding us, healing us, and transforming us each day. With a heart full of gratitude and hope, we are invited to step forward in faith, trusting that God is with us always. In summary, Psalm 27 offers a powerful reminder of God's unwavering light, strength, and protection in times of trial. Through David's profound trust and reliance on God's divine strength, we are encouraged to place our faith in God's care and guidance. This prayerful reflection invites us to draw closer to God, surrender our burdens to Him, and experience the peace that only He can provide. As we seek His blessings and grace, we are reminded that, with God as our refuge, we can face any challenge with courage and hope. If this message has touched your heart, we invite you to subscribe to our channel for more prayers and uplifting messages. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and may God's peace, love, and blessings be with you always.